Imagine getting called out by the Pope for being a horrible person. People are ridiculing J.D. Vance for being so confidently wrong that he was apparently corrected by the Pope himself. BuzzFeed. I'm not even that Catholic, but the thought of the Pope calling me out personally would be humiliating. G. Below are your comments. Seems like what J.D. Vance is missing, and what the Pope is trying to point out, is that the key thing is to not vilify or demonize immigrants, whether they are legal or illegal. And I'm very curious to see if any Trump supporters will try to argue that Trump has not demonized immigrants. I found and read the entire letter. I have no issue with Pope Francis and believe him to be an expert in his field. He is, after all, the Pope. But what kind of a letter would Pope Francis write to the bishops in Mexico, or Guatemala, Ecuador, or all the other countries in Latin America regarding the care, dignity and treatment of the citizens by the leaders of all those countries? However, how we live in the USA, or how we have lived, is available to all countries. It isn't even rocket science. It's called government of, by and for the people. If the church has any power at all anymore, the church needs to influence and work with the government of all those countries to find ways to improve the lives of their people so they can be proud, prosperous, and positive about life within their borders. As for J.D. Vance, he is guilty of spiritual materialism, which means he distorts biblical teachings to suit his own narrative. Well, Trump said back in 2015 that he doesn't ask for forgiveness because he never does anything wrong. He doesn't see the need because God chose him for America. So he's forgiven for everything because the SCOTUS said so too. We're in trouble, people. The true ordo amoris that must be promoted is that which we discover by meditating constantly on the parable of the Good Samaritan, that is, by meditating on the love that builds a fraternity open to all, without exception. Perhaps Vance better go to confession, ask for. I also believe we do unto others as we would have them do unto us. It appears neither is being held close to the heart or head. It is time to study the Bible, especially the New Testament. I do not know what some of these individuals will say when asked at the gates, "What did you do for East among us?" Like everything else, Trump thinks he knows everything about everything, and if not, he makes it up. Or insists that his interpretation is spot on. As a lifelong Catholic born and raised in the United States, I think Pope Francis should invest more of his time speaking out against the corruption and tyranny so prevalent in countries in his native South American and nearby Central America. If those countries treated their people with the dignity and respect they deserve, they wouldn't have a legitimate reason to be coming to the United States in droves. If the United States was such a bad place, as the Pope asserts, why do people from his part of the world keep coming here? Instead of lecturing Donald Trump and DJ Vance about making the U.S. more welcoming to refugees from South and Central America, this Pope should be lecturing politicians from south of the border, many of whom are Catholics or former Catholics, about steps they must take in accordance with biblical teachings to improve the. Did Vance let the Pope know he can pick up a Trump personally autographed Bible for $99.95? I understand that Vance told the Pope to stick to the church business. I think the Pope should do that by excommunicating him. That's church business. I agree with the Pope on this. The thing to always keep in mind with the Bible is that many of its teachings are done through metaphors, parables, particularly Jesus, and even allegories. It can be very difficult to interpret, even by the most learned. To take it too literally is a big mistake. Street. Augustine, perhaps the greatest doctor of the Church, warned us against this. In matters that are so obscure and far beyond our vision, we find in Holy Scripture passages which can be interpreted in very different ways without prejudice to the faith we have received. In such cases, we should not rush in headlong and so firmly take our stand on one side that, if her progress in the search of truth justly undermines this position, we too fall with it. That would be to battle not for the teaching of Holy Scripture but for our own, wishing its teaching to conform to ours, whereas we ought to wish ours to conform to that of sacred Scripture. 00. Resettling immigrants is a term used here to mean helping them obtain basic necessities like housing and food. I totally get the value of compassion and generosity, but one also needs to understand how that feels for American citizens who need those same basic necessities. And J.D. Vance is on his way to Germany. There is a mass protest against the far-right party of which Germany considers J.D. Vance a member of. The reason Trump didn't go is because he has 34 felonies and can't obtain a visa. Every religion has some version of the Golden Rule. And I can't think of a single one that has as many versions of neighbors as JDV has folded into his definition. There's just us and others. I've had my knuckles rapped by nuns before, and JDV just got his knuckles rapped by the Pope. He's spoken about this many, many times over the years. He's spoken about it. Still waiting for the Vatican to lead the way with its own open borders. Pope think Nancy P. and Biden are good Catholics and both for the fight for abortion. He criticizes Catholics who want nothing more than immigrants come legally into the country and not break the law. Does he criticize the third world leaders who are rich but their people poor? This will be a continuing occurrence with JD. Apparently he likes slap downs. Vance probably skipped his CCD class the night they covered this. He seems to know a little about a lot of things, but not much about anything. A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not of building bridges, is not Christian. 00. This is not the gospel, Pope Francis. 00. If J.D. Vance is a good, practicing Catholic, then I must be a saint. The Pope never would have commented if Vance gave a good solid reason. But the nonsensical Vance stated was anti to every Christian sect, not just the Roman Catholic. The Pope and Trump are standing on stage in front of a large crowd. The Pope says to Trump, "Do you know that with one little wave of my hand I can make every person in this crowd go wild with joy? This joy will not be a momentary display, like that of your followers, but go deep into their hearts. And for the rest of their lives whenever they." The Vatican is over the top valuable monetarily. Maybe he needs to open the gates and take all the deportees in. He can sell some of the artwork and use the proceeds to feed and shelter them. I have a feeling he would do as the Martha Vineyard residents did. Get rid of them and make them someone else's problem. America first, says Vance. The Trump administration in 3 weeks. Removed EEO and DAI attempting to eliminate birthright citizenship, taking away due process to undocum. Entered immigrants imposing tariffs with other countries pardoning the insurrectionists who attempted to. Francis needs to spend more time addressing issues within the church, not the U.S. government. J.D. Vance's distorted interpretation of Ordo Amoris ignores the basic, most fundamental principle in its application. That is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. In other words, you must love everyone, as Jesus loved everyone, including your enemies. Of course you cannot love everyone equally, but you must never seek to actively harm or injure anyone. Nay. You can first see the needs and illnesses of those you love more before seeing to the needs of others. That is natural. That is acceptable. But to deprive refugees of critical aid, to shut down schools for girls, to shut clinics that serve the poor, to stop digging wells or irrigation systems in drought regions, to stop sending grain to famine regions, that is unacceptable. That has nothing to do with Ordo Amoris, but are exercises in racism, anger, apathy or antipathy. J.D. Vance is coming dangerously close to having Yale University send the goon squad to J.D.'s resident and forcefully retrieving their law degree from his possession. The embarrassment of him possessing a law degree assigned by them is beyond words. The reputation hit is astounding. Don't blame the VP, it was his education, or lack of. Evidently research was never emphasized in his curriculum. Since he is a converted Catholic, he must have been too busy to attend all the classes teaching the beliefs that are taught. I am sure he had excuses for that. Maybe he should make an official visit to the Vatican to learn more. The government will pay for it. I think I might go back to church after this. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you like it, please thumbs up.